بسم الله الرحمن الرحیم. جناب کارتر، ایالات امریکا به نمایندگی ملت، قوای امنیتی و دفاعی افغانستان و دولت افغانستان، شما دوست دیرینه و همکار استراتژیک ما را در افغانستان خوش آمد میگم. در قدم اول به نمایندگی قوای امنیتی و دفاعی افغانستان از تمام اساکر امریکا، مرد و زن که در طول سالها شانه به شانه به ما استاد شدن و برای آزادی ما، مخصوصا اونایی که جان خود قربانی کردن، ابراز امتنان میکنیم و از شما درخواست میکنیم که احترامات عمیق ما را و تسلیت دوامدار ما را به خانواده‌هاشون برسانید. همچنین زیاده در حدود 1 میلیون مرد و زن که یونیفرم قوای امنیتی را پوشیدن و تحت قمانده شما در خاک ما امرای ما کمک کردن، از همشان ابراز امتنان میکنیم. هر بار که اینا رو میبینین، مراتب امتنان عمیق ملت و دولت افغانستان به اینا ارائه کنید. من میخوایم در قدم اول از قوای امنیتی و دفاعی ما ابراز امتنان کنیم. بعد از تکمیل پروسه انتقال که ما شما سرش مشترکاً کار کردیم، اولاد صدیق از این وطن به قیمت خون خود آزادی ما را به دست آوردن و حفاظت کردن و از شما و رئیس جمهور با ما ابراز امتنان میکنیم که این قربانی از اینا را حرمت گذاشتین و در کنفرانس وارسا تصامیم نهایت عمده گرفتین. تصمیم اولتون راجع به تمویل 3 سال آینده قوای امنیتی و دفاعی ما بود که بدون امکانات یک اردو حرکت کرده نمیتونه، قوای امنیتی و دفاعی، و وعده ما در این قسمت پروگرام واضح ما است که هر دلار، هر افغانی با په شفاف توګه حساب ورکول کیږي. موږ مصمم یو چې هم خپله برخه ډیره کو، لکه چې تیر کال هم ثابته کړه چې سره له دې چې اقتصادي وضع د افغانستان ډیره خرابه وه، موږ خپله برخه د امنیتي او دفاعي قواو د تقویې دپاره ډیره کړه او دې ته به دوام ورکو. مګر هغه امکانات چې له باندې نه راځي په مطلق شفافیت سره به استعمالیږي او لکه چې ما وارسا کې وویلې، موږ غواړو چې دا په شرایطو باندې راوړو چې واضح د مدیریت د نظام جوړولو، د سیستم جوړولو یو نظامي چې وکړی سو، او بل د دې څنګ کې موږ ژمن یو چې خپل اقتصاد ته داسې پراختیا ورکړو چې د دې 3 کالو په ختم کې موږ وکړی سو ډیره برخه د امنیتي و دفاعي قواو ضرورت خپله ترسره ورسو. دوهم، ډیر مننه چې تاسو فیصله وکړله چې جنرال صاحب نیکلسن ته خاص اختیارات ورکړي. زه غواړم چې موږ د امنیتي و دفاعي قواو په استازیتوب او د دولت د مخصوصا سرقماندان د اعلی په حیث باندې له جنرال صاحب نیکلسن او له دوی د همکارانو نه مننه وکړو. هم جنرال صاحب کمبل، هم جنرال صاحب نیکلسن آخري کوښښونه یې کړي دي، هغه رقم موږ سره درېدلی دي، نه شپه یې لیدلې نه ورځ. داسې وخت نه و چې موږ ضروریاتو ته دوی ځواب نه ده ویلی او موږ سره د زړه له کومې نه دوی څو واره افغانستان کې خدمت کړی، اما اوس خاص مراحل او مراتب دي او موږ مننه کوو. او هغه صلاحیتونه چې دوی ته ورکول سوي دي، هر صلاحیت د دې مساوي په 60,000 مسلح قواو ده. نو دا صلاحیتونه د یو لوی اعتبار خاوند دي او دا د دې موجب سوی چې هغه کارونه چې تیر کال موږ په 3 میاشتو کې یا 6 میاشتې کول، اوس په 3 ساعتو کې یا 3 ورځو کې انجاموو. و قوای امنیتی و دفاعی ما از همکاری جنرال نیکلسن و تمام همکارایشان و وزارت دفاع که تحت نظر مدبرانه شما اداره میشه نهایت ممنون است. و نقطه سوم تصمیم راجع به موجودیت 8400 نفر افراد یونیفرم در افغانستان است. ما از شما و رئیس جمهور اوباما خاصتا ممنون هستیم و دلیل است که رئیس جمهور اوباما به ملت امریکا وعده کرده بود که تعداد عساکر در افغانستان تقلیل می. دلیل از این که فیصله خود گشتاندن و این تصمیم گرفتن تغییر ماحول بود. انتقال با فرضیه از این استوار شده بود که توریسم در حال ختم شدن است، خطر القاعده در حال رفتن است. در 2012 هیچ کس پیش‌بینی داعش نداشت. ماحول تغییر کرد، اما مخصوصا دولت افغانستان صلح خواست، هم در مقابل مخالفین مسلح، هم در مقابل همسایه. تمام کوشش‌های ما برای صلح رد شد و قوایی که نه هدف دارن نه کدام دیدگاه برای یک آینده سالم افغانستان دارن کوشش کردن که افغانستان به تباهی بره. دیروز هم خدمت همکارا ذکر کردم پل را که با $2 میلیون ایجاد میشه و مردم ما را با هم وصل میکنه تا طفل به مکتب بره، زن به شفاخانه بره، زن حامله به شفاخانه بره و دیقان و باغدار مال خود به شهرها برسانه، از خاطر $1,000 انفجار میده. اینجا ضرورت عزیز که به صورت واضح بفهمیم که قانون اساسی افغانستان دیدگاه ماست. دولت افغانستان متعهد به اجرای قانون اساسی خود است. حقوق و وجایب را مخصوصا که برای زنای ما، اطفال ما، هر فرد ما و تصمیمی که دولت ایالات متحده امریکا گرفت یک تصمیم راجع به آینده و نسل‌های آینده افغانستان است. از این جهت یک فضای اطمینان ایجاد شده و در عین حال پیغام واضح به کسایی که و قوت‌هایی که صلح نمیخواین، ثبات نمیخواین داده شد که آرزوهای شوم خود در میدان جنگ به دست آورده نمید. ما باز هم میخوایم که با وضاحت ذکر کنم که ما تعهد ما به مردم ما به اساس شفافیت، مبارزه سرتاسری با فساد اداری و تنظیم منابع بشری ماست. از این جهت هیچ نوع اختلاف بین دیدگاه ما و دیدگاه شریک استراتژیک ما ایالات متحده امریکا وجود نداره. فساد برابر توریسم خطرناک است. تعهد ما بر اجرای حقوق بشر، اجرای حقوق طفل سرتاسری است و امید واضح داریم که آینده افغانستان انشالله تعالی درخشان خواهد باشه و مشترکاً خطرات را که از پاریس و بروسل گرفته تا خود ایالات متحده امریکا وجود داره ما مشترکاً انشالله سرش فائق خواهد شدیم. بازم از تشریف آوری شما نهایت تشکر و از شما خواهش میکنم که نظریاتتان همراه ما شریک کنید.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Nice to see everyone. Good afternoon. It's very good for me to be back once again here in Afghanistan, and it's always an honor to be here with President Ghani. This is my third trip as Secretary of Defense. Been here many times before that as well, and my visit comes on the heels of 3 major decisions that the United States has made. First, to enhance the authorities of our ground commanders, commanded by General Nicholson. Second, to maintain our financial commitment to the Afghan security forces, and third, to retain a more substantial U.S. force presence into 2017. I'm also pleased to report that our allies, with whom both President Ghani and CEO Abdullah, as well as I, and of course President Obama, met in Warsaw last week, those allies also intend to remain fully committed to the Resolute Support Mission here in Afghanistan and to assisting the Afghan security forces. I've had a very productive day here of meetings and my wide-ranging conversations both with President Ghani, Chief Executive Abdullah, as well as their security ministers reaffirmed to me that we have strong partners here with a common vision focused on a secure and prosperous future for the Afghan people. It was a pleasure to meet for the first time with my new counterpart, Minister Habibi, as well as Minister of Interior Jahid, to discuss the future of our security partnership and the progress of the Afghan National Defense and Security Forces since taking full responsibility in January 2015. I look forward to working with them in the weeks and months ahead. As the coalition partners reiterated at the NATO summit in Warsaw last week, where they confirmed their commitment to financial sustainment to Afghan forces and the continuation of the Resolute Support Mission, the Afghan security forces have demonstrated the motivation, the will, and the resilience in the face of a persistent enemy. I have confidence in the ability of the Afghan forces to provide for the security and stability that the Afghan people deserve. And I commend them for fighting courageously last year during a tough fighting season and for their continued dedication in the face of formidable challenges this year. And in fact, Afghan security forces continue to step up. For the second year now, Afghan forces are fully responsible for their own security, and every day, nearly 320,000 Afghan soldiers and police are serving and fighting courageously. And many, far too many, have paid the ultimate price. I join President Ghani in honoring their sacrifices. Now, with Afghan forces taking even further lead for security, we're looking to build upon their successes, to find ways to support and enable them more effectively. With that in mind, we also discussed President Obama's announcement last week regarding our troop levels, an adjustment I recommended after consulting with General Nicholson, General Votel, and General Dunford. Maintaining a U.S. force presence in Afghanistan of 8,400 troops will enhance our ability to continue progress on our two most central missions here in Afghanistan: training, advising, and assisting Afghan forces so that they can secure their nation, and supporting counterterrorism operations that prevent the use of the territory of this nation as a safe haven for terrorists against all of us. Finally, we discussed President Obama's recent decision to grant additional flexibility to the U.S. commander here in Afghanistan, flexibility that will maximize the use and effectiveness of our forces that are already here in Afghanistan to support Afghan forces. Earlier today, I met with General Nicholson to review the ways in which these additional authorities are being utilized to support Afghan security forces and pursue our counterterrorism objectives. This added flexibility, coupled with the new integration of the A-29 and MD-530 close air support platforms, reflects our determination to seize every opportunity possible to use our resources in theater to the greatest possible effect. We're prepared to take these steps because we have a strong and stable partner in Afghanistan. President Ghani, in partnership with Chief Executive Abdullah, is advancing crucial reforms that are critical to securing the future for this nation. Progress on reforms is central to continued international funding commitments, and I encourage President Ghani and Chief Executive Abdullah to continue moving forward. So, President Ghani, thank you for hosting me and our forces here, for the close working relationship you and I have shared over many years. I remember the first thing you did when I introduced you in the Pentagon courtyard in March 2015. And by the way, I'm not the only one who remembers this very well. Many Americans remember this very well. You said thank you to the men and women of the U.S. military for the sacrifices they and their families have made over the previous 14 years. And you also took the time to visit Arlington National Cemetery to remember the fallen. It was a deeply appreciated gesture. Thank you. And I want to take this similar opportunity while I'm here, Mr. President, to deliver my own message to the Afghan people who have put themselves at risk and sacrificed so much to bring us to this point of promise, potential, and strength. We're with you. We stand by you. And we will continue to work hard together to finish the mission we started. Finally, I want to thank General Nicholson and our NATO partners for the work they do here every day to ensure a bright future for the Afghan people and a strong security partner for us all. And I thank all of the American, NATO, and Afghan troops who have served and sacrificed together over the past 15 years in the name of peace, security, and freedom, and who continue that mission today. With that, thank you, and I think we'll be happy to take some questions.
Of course.
تشکر جلالت محب رئیس جمهور و آقای کارتر. سوالات خود را قسمی میگیریم که 2 سوال از مطبوعات مستقر در کابل و 2 سوال هم از مطبوعاتی که از بیرون آمدن. از تلویزیون ملی شروع میکنیم.
تشکر. نبی الله حسینی هستم از تلویزیون ملی. خوش آمدید میگم جناب وزیر دفاع امریکا را به افغانستان. شما از نیروهایتان مشخص ساختین که در افغانستان به 8400 تا می باشه. حالا از صلاحیت‌هایشان شما برای ما مشخص‌تر بگویید، چرا که افغانستان منبع و تمویل تروریسم میدانه که از خارج مرزهای افغانستان است. در رابطه با مبارزه با تروریسم صلاحیت‌های از اینا تا چی است؟ و از جناب رئیس جمهور افغانستان سوال ما است که در کنفرانس وارسا جامعه جهانی تعهدات مشخص را برای تمویل و کمک افغانستان نمودند. ضمانت شما برای جامعه جهانی چی بود که از این کمک‌ها شما به کدام صورت و به کدام بهترش استفاده می‌کنید تا عیف عمل نشود؟
Sir, first of all, General Nicholson has been given by myself and President Obama very broad authorities against terrorism. And that's true for him here in Afghanistan. It's true for U.S. forces around the world. What is a critical difference that the General is now able to make use of, an important change in authorities in the last few months, is basically this. In a nutshell, it is the ability for General Nicholson, along with his Afghan colleagues, to anticipate battlefield dynamics and to deploy and employ their forces together in a way that stops a situation from deteriorating, interrupts an enemy in the early stages of planning and formulating an attack. And quite simply, previously his instructions were to essentially obliged him to wait until a situation had already developed and then begin to act with his Afghan partners. And that's not as good a way of using his forces. So it's a very logical thing. I think most people can understand what it is. It's a very simple thing, but it's a very important thing. And it'll be and is already being a very powerful thing on the battlefield.
تشکر. اول ما با عمل رفتیم نه با کاغذ. سال گذشته همتون آگاهستین که از نگاه اقتصادی یک سال نهایت مشکل بود. افغانستان تانست عواید ملی خود 22% زیاد کنه و یه اراده میخواست، تعهد میخواست و تعقیب میخواست. تدارکات در حدود 57 جلسه تدارکات من شخصا رهبری کرد. تنها در بخش امکانات غذایی وزارت دفاع که از جناب مشترک و بیس ابراز امتنان میکنیم 1.6 میلیارد افغانی صرفه‌جویی شد که امروز ما ایره بر رسیدگی به خانواده شهدا و مجروحین اختصاص میدیم. سیستم منسجم تقاعد سیستم منسجم ترفیع، حرف اساسی ما ایجاد یک نظام باورمند است. هر عسکر، هر سرباز و هر افسر پلیس، در فرد پلیس و افسرش به صورت اساسی تثبیت خواهد شد، بایومتریک خواهد شد، باورمند خواهد بودیم که وجود داریم و نظام یک نظام است که هر اولاد غریب باید یقین داشته باشه که به اساس کفایت خود بالاترین مراجع امنیتی و دفاعی ما میرسه. و عمده‌ترین تعهد ما تعهد سربازای ماست، تعهد بریدملای ماست، تعهد افسرای ماست، تعهد جنرالای ماست که با سربازی خود ثابت کردن که برای مملکت باور دارن. 549 نفر از اکادمی دفاعی ما فارغ تحصیل شدن، 13 دخترای جوان ما بودن. یک هفته بعد اکثریت از اینا در خط اول هلمند و ارزگان قرار داشتن. تعهد به این رقم و یک دیدگاه واضح و شفاف که چیزی را که ملت ما درخواست میکنه در عین حال به جامعه جهانی تعهد کرد.
Thank you. President Ghani, you just said that there's no strategic difference of views between your government and that of the United States, but there often seems to be a difference of views within your own government. Both your own Vice President Dostum and Chief Executive Abdullah have expressed dissatisfaction. Can you commit and do you have confidence that your government has the political support it needs to carry out the very difficult reforms and anti-corruption measures that you've promised to both NATO and the United States? And do you have the political support it needs to create a stable government that can defeat the Taliban? And for Secretary Carter, can you speak to what assurances you received today from President Ghani and from Chief Executive Abdullah that they can actually bridge their differences, which have been going on now for since 2014, and therefore create a stable government that can defeat the Taliban? Thank you.
Second part is easy. We sat in the same room in Warsaw, President Ghani and Chief Executive Abdullah, with all of the leaders of NATO 3 days ago. I sat today with the two of them, and our conversation was one conversation with a common vision of Afghanistan's future and a common determination by the two of them to pursue that vision. So the three of us and the three leaders, that is President Obama and the two of them in Warsaw, were of one mind about how to pursue the mission here in Afghanistan. And I just commend both of them for preserving the strength of the national unity government. That's critical to Afghanistan's future. There's no question about it. And they have kept that unity together. And so I think they have the admiration of both not only the United States, but also everybody around that table in Warsaw, as well as the support for the national unity government here. That's easy for us.
Thank you for the question. We've faced three transitions simultaneously. In 2014, when I was honored to serve this nation, we oversaw the departure of over 100,000 NATO ISAF troops, ended the combat mission of ISAF for good. And I can assure the parents of those individuals who served here or were in harm's way that never again will they be in combat situations. Any other country, ma'am, that faced that transition would have now been on its knees. We're standing tall. And this has taken unity. I pay tribute to our security sector leaders and to our national security decision-making pattern. All decisions have been made by National Security Council. We have created an institutional basis for decision-making on security that is efficient, effective, and rapid. And compared to what we inherited, please do a comparison. And also to compare us with other countries. Because there has to be, when judgments are made, they have to be grounded in comparison and understanding. Second, we faced an economic transition. NATO ISAF was just not a military force. It was the greatest economic spender in this country. We faced an economic recession bordering on a depression and still increased revenue 22%. Does that speak for differences of opinion or for focus? We increased, not only we met our contributions to our forces, we increased them. And now we are generating dynamism in the economy. Third transition was political. For over 200 years, Afghanistan's politics had been a zero-sum game. The winner takes all. We've overcome this difference. And if you want to see how governments function, please read Mr. Powell's memoirs about relations between Mr. Blair and Mr. Gordon Brown. All decision-makings require discussion, debate, and understanding, but we have not failed to make the right decisions. And on our greatest transition, which is the fourth one, it's the transition in the culture of the states. We inherited corruption as an entrenched system. And what we are doing systematically and through a rule of law approach is to make sure we end impunity. The formation of the Counter-Corruption Center is a major step, and in the next months, between now and Brussels, and after that, I hope you will judge us by the actions we take. And where does the support come from? Support comes from the ordinary Afghans. Ordinary Afghans are extraordinary, and I want to pay tribute to them. We are taken 40 years of conflict imposed upon us. Daily, we are struggling with want, with impositions, with terrorism, and yet our resilience is second to none. I think that people, this great people, wants a government that befits their great aspirations, and we are determined, and what we are doing concretely is benchmarking. What we've proposed to the international community is the model that we experimented with the United States, the new economic framework. We don't ask for money. We want support in return for results. And results will be specific, time-bound, and when they're delivered, the support will be forthcoming.
سوال بعدی از BBC افغانستان.
My first question goes to Mr. Carter. The United States has targeted Taliban leader Mullah Mansour deep inside Pakistan territory and beyond the tribal areas. I'm wondering to know whether it was only a one attack or you're going to continue targeting insurgent leaders in those areas far from tribals again and again. و سوالم از آقای غنی است. شما پیوسته گفتین که در یک جنگ اعلام ناشده با پاکستان درگیر از جنگ هستین و مشکلات شما هم با پاکستان روز به روز بیشتر میشه و ما میبینیم که اختلافات بیشتر شده. ما میخوایم بفهمم که به خاطر حل از این مشکلات و اینکه پاکستان به تقاضاهای شما توجه کنه کاری بوده که آمریکا میتونسته بکنه و نکرده؟ تشکر.
Sure. I'll start off, and actually, if you don't mind, I'll comment on the second part of your question as well, which is Pakistan. Pakistan is a country that the United States has a strong relationship with, a long historical relationship with. So we work with them in many fields, including in the security field. We believe that the greatest threat to Pakistan's security is terrorism. It's not its neighbors. It's terrorism. And therefore, we work with Pakistan wherever we can together against terrorism of all kinds. And any terrorism that emanates from Pakistani territory, or of course any terrorism that would affect Pakistan itself, as it does, and as I said, is in our judgment the most serious security danger that the state of Pakistan faces. We do that with also, obviously, with Afghanistan. We have a strong partnership there. We work with them as they work together across the border in this mission. And on the issue of terrorist leadership, the United States will continue to target and strike terrorist leaders everywhere in the world where they might threaten Americans or our interests and our friends. We'll continue to do that as we have demonstrated that we do.
تشکر. مناسبات ما خراب شده نرفته، روشن‌تر شده رفته. امید است تفکیک کنیم. بحث ما اول در تعریف مشکل بود. وقتی ما پاکستان رفتم با وضاحت اعلان کردم که جنگ نااعلام شده بود و این چارچوبه اینا سوال نکردن. دوم واضح گفتیم که دولت به دولت ما مناسبات نیک میخواییم، مذاکرات چهار جانبه فرصت واضح بود که مشکل تعریف شود و تفکیک بین صلح طلبا و جنگ طلبا به اساس فیصله خودشان واضح شود و تعهد واضح امضا شده دولت پاکستان وجود داره که در مقابل کسایی که صلح نمیخواین و به جنگ و تروریسم مراجعه میکنن باید به حیث دولت اقدام کنن. از این که در روشن‌تر وضع شده نمیتونه و نتیجه چهار جانبه و مذاکرات ما و مناسبات استراتژیک ما است که امروز پاکستان با یک تصمیم اساسی روبروی است و امید است که تصمیم درسته بگیره. تصمیم درست چیست؟ تروریسم خوب و بد نداره. تروریسم است. دولت ها وسیله صلح، ثبات و رفاه عام هستند. مناسبات بین دولت ها به اساس قوانین بین المللی عیار میشه، در غیر از او تمام نظام منطقوی و نظام بین المللی مورد خطر واقع میشه و از این که در وضاحت زیادتر با وجود آمده نمیتونه و ما از شرکای بنیادی ما ایالات متحده امریکا تشکر میکنم تمام اقدامات لازمه صورت گرفت با درک ازی که ایالات متحده امریکا میخواد که تمام دولت‌های منطقه در صلح باشن، در مقابل تروریسم صف واحد بگیریم و مشکل تعریف کنیم. تروریسم تنها افغانستان، پاکستان در خطر نمیندازه. مدینه منوره، مکه معظم، حرمین شریفین امروز مورد حمله است. جهان اسلام، منطقه و تمام دنیا منافع مشترک داره. مناسبات ما به اساس منافع مشترک و به اساس دیدگاه مشترک به وجود آمده و امید داریم که پاکستان تصامیم درسته بگیره که با این وضاحتی که داریم. ما در مسائل کوچک مورد بحث نیستیم. سر بزرگترین مسائل که رفاه منطقه و رفاه دنیا و جان اسلام به او بسته است در داخل بحث هستیم و امید است بحث سازنده تلقی کنیم.
Gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Dan Lamothe with the Washington Post. President Ghani, thank you very much for having us in your country. My question for you is related to particularly these new strikes on the Taliban. Do you think that could potentially bring the Taliban to any kind of peace talk, or is that even feasible considering the fracturing of the Taliban since the death of Mullah Mansour? Secretary Carter, following all of these meetings today and the assessments you've received, can you give us some additional detail on some specific examples of how these new strikes carried out with these new authorities have worked? Thank you.
Well, I'll go first, if Dan, on the second question. I'm really going to let you talk to Mick about that, and he can give you the specifics of it. I'll just go back to what I said previously, which is that it makes a lot more sense for our commanders working with their Afghan counterparts to look at the battlefield, look at what they know, the enemy's battle plan, and how the enemy is moving, and to anticipate their movements. That makes for a much more efficient use and effective use of the forces we have here, as well as the Afghan forces. And previously, General Nicholson's authorities were that when or if Afghan security forces found themselves in a difficult situation, then they could call their American counterparts, and their American counterparts could come and go shoulder to shoulder with them and help. It obviously, to me, makes a lot more sense to be doing it the way we're doing it now. It's a lot more effective use of our forces. And for specific tactical examples, I really want to let you talk to General Nicholson, and I'll make them available to you for that purpose. But that's the general strategic idea, and I think it's a very logical change. I'm grateful that the President made that change. I'm grateful to General Nicholson for calling it to our attention that this was an opportunity we hadn't seized yet, and now we're seizing it.
Well, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Afghanistan. Please come again. And we have a wonderful free media who enjoy every aspect of questioning, every policy, and we like it. So you're very welcome, and no international journalist will ever be put on a blacklist. So do come again and again. Let me first bring context to you.
He's doing great so far.
Yes, exactly.
He's pleased, just quit now.
3 phases of vicious attacks have been launched on us this year. Mosques have been attacked. Our students, security students, in their classrooms have been butchered. Our graduates of police academy, on their way, have been butchered. In the wake of very clear commitments in the quadrilateral process. 16 benchmarks, none observed. What's been the strategic goal? 1, to bring down the government. 2, minimally to divide Afghanistan into 2 political geographies. They are not going to achieve these goals. When we're challenged, we need to respond to illegitimate force with legitimate force. The use of force by us and by our strategic partner, United States, is legitimate use of force. And we welcome this, we are agreed upon it, peace will come, but we need to win the battle of confidence and the belief that they cannot bring us down. There was uncertainty. Uncertainty is a great catalyst to terror and to violence, because they thought while Afghanistan was being used as a battlefield, the audience was Europe and in the United States and our other partners. Now, with the very clear message of Warsaw, Warsaw's message is not just trust in our security forces, it's also a key message to armed opponents that the only way for engagement is a peace process where, if there are grievances, we are the first to acknowledge the shortcomings. Corruption is as strong a threat as is terrorism. So we will address any legitimate grievance of our citizen, but the process is the negotiating table, not the battlefield. And as long as the interests of the Afghan children, Afghan women, elders, any Afghan citizen is being threatened by law, by international law, and by every human historical precedent, we're entitled to use force, and we are determined to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.